Hello. Happy Federal Election Day here in Canada. Uh, I actually voted last week in the advance polls, so I'm all done. Uh, Need to take Farija down for her to exercise her political franchise. That's about all I have to say about that. Other than that, Monday reads. Let me just quickly go through. Oh, God, every week I say quickly, and then it's a 20-minute video. Let me go through in whatever length that this app happens to turn out to be, and tell you about what I've been reading this last week and what I've started upon. Um, Continuing with Gulliver's travels, I'm in the fourth voyage, where he is with the Winhams, which there's the how it's pronounced, how it's said, and then how it's theoretically pronounced, Winhams, which I would have not known if I hadn't looked in the back of the Oxford edition that I have, and it has helpful notes, and apparently that is pronounced Winhams. Which are the irrational horse creatures in this land, where they have beasts of burdens who are bipedal, hairy, super disgusting, vile creatures that yahoos that have no power of speech, are live in filth, eat diseased, eat like asses and dead dogs and diseased cows that are given to them by their masters, the Winhams. Um, and our Gulliver has the most kind of he says he has the most strongest kind of repulsion to, probably because they are human beings, but they are very much beasts. They're not even beasts. They're just unclean animals, and we're again getting into Swift's views of things, where the Winhams, these horses, are extremely rational. They're not completely without passions, but the passions don't rule them. They're thoughtful. They are not meat eaters. They're vegetarians, or yeah, vegetarians, because they do drink cow's milk. Um, and this apparently is going by notes and just sort of reading it, you get the sense that this is actually kind of the Wyndham Society is kind of a utopian society, but it's a utopian society in the biblical sense of they haven't fallen. There isn't a sin. The Wyndhams don't know how to lie. They don't have a word for lying. Um, One of the other interesting things is that in this utopian society, there's no written language. There's no books. Certainly no books that make things up, make stories, which, according to the notes in the Oxford Classic, that is actually a rather common feature in utopian societies, that they don't have the written word, which it's like sounds like a dystopia to me where there's no books. But it's like it's one of those interesting things that in this a society where the the masters do not have not fallen, do not know how to lie. There's no need for for the written word, which is one of those interesting things. I mean, we'll set aside, like, the economics and wanting to maybe take record, like, crop yields and keep track of things that way, which is how language sort of initially seems to have developed, but not language but records initially developed, because obviously there's oral traditions and rich oral culture, and I guess the Winhams maybe have a rich oral culture. But yeah, so that was an interesting thing, and I mean that's one of Gulliver's key characteristics. Is he's all throughout this book, it's kind of stressed how he has a facility with learning at least spoken language. But yeah, Utopia is a place without books. It's like, oh, that's maybe the most horrifying thing of all. So yeah, I've been reading Gulliver's Travels. I also read finally caught up with reading The Tempest for Shaketember, which this is probably the last Shakespeare play I'll read for Shaketember. It just took me forever to get through, though again always really rewarding, and I finally got around to listening to Rainey at Rainy Day Books. It was on her channel that she hosted a discussion with her, Jason at Old Blues Chapters and Verse, and Lukash at Cruel Reader's Thesis, and their discussion of The Tempest. And I always find these discussions really interesting, and just as a great way of just having a point to kind of like bounce off of. And I think this week, actually this is now a couple of weeks ago because I am so behind. They were discussing Caliban and how they visualize Caliban, how Caliban would be depicted on stage, and they kind of talked about some rather fantastical versions of, like, him with fins, because he was described as like neither fish nor man, and as a kind of this odd, he's the son of a witch, Skorox, and just like how he could be depicted. And that was interesting to me because I thought of him as he's probably an islander. He's this is sort of kind of Caribbean. Maybe he's a black slave that has been well, he's not a black slave. We know Skorox was brought here, but maybe his original Indo-American native actually is sort of how I more thought of him. And I think I thought of him that way because of various readings I've done, and just how Europeans would often describe native peoples that they came upon in their voyages of discovery, and often they would describe them as monstrous because they didn't look like them coming from Europe. So it's odd that in a play as fantastical as The Tempest, that has a wizard in Prospero, that has this fairy spirit in Ariel, I actually looked at Caliban and I thought, no, that's a guy. That's an Indo-American a guy. Maybe that's also from reading The Mermaid of Black Conch a little while ago, where there was a mermaid who was a Indo-American indigenous person that had been turned into a mermaid thousands and thousands of years ago at first contact, had been turned into a creature. And I think I was thinking that no, actually this is Shakespeare taking accounts of Europeans and turning this figure into a monster. And I mean, having the kind of the idea of him of wanting to get the woman, get the beautiful European woman and rape her, it's like that's sort of one of those classical one of those horrible kind of tropes that you get projected on male others, is that, oh, they want to rape our women and take them, and that sort of thing, which actually kind of puts me in mind of a lot of I read a lot of fantasy, and that a lot of the others in fantasy, they actually mention Tolkien, for example, and while I don't, with Tolkien is kind of the father of modern fantasy, with his orcs and the trolls and the various other monsters in his books, but it's like that is coming from an earlier culture of finding monsters in the world, and those monsters might objectively just sort of look like human beings to a modern eye, but we've taken this idea of the monster and made it into a fantastical thing. But that, yeah, I saw Caliban as a man, just a man that these Europeans turned into another, there. So yeah, that was. It's Shaketember is always super rewarding. I'm not going to continue on, but hey, thank you, fellow booktubers over at Shaketember, which you should totally check out for their things. I think they've still got A Winter's Tale left, which I regret not going on to reading, but I know at this point it would. I don't think it would. I would be able to get through. So I'm bowing out at this point. But please, especially if you're interested in Winter's Tale, you should check them out, because that's going on this week. This week coming up to finish out Shaketember, September. So yeah, that is the stuff that I. And I finished listening to Actress by Anne Enright, which was narrated by Anne Enright with her beautiful Irish accent and just beautiful kind of ruminative internal voice. I think this is one of these things of like this is the kind of book that really highlights what a novel can do, which is tell an interior story, because it's telling the interior story of Nora Odell, kind of a middling, maybe failed author, coming to terms with her mother, Catherine Odell, legendary screen actress and as legend of the stage and of butter commercial, which is often how some of the great actresses of the later eras is like, oh yeah, Martha Raye, wasn't she in a commercial or something like that? It's funny, the trajectory of how actresses got chewed up and spit out again, and indeed, Catherine Odell's life was one of a great height, and then a great and tragic fall, and Nora learns a lot of kind of just a lot of connections between. It's very much a story of the daughter and the mother, and the connections in their life. Some of the really sad and tragic connections in their life. There is like sexual assault in this novel, and it's used in a way that unfortunately, sadly, is it's very organic with a lot of people's lives, especially women's lives, and it's one of these ones that I think it's the audiobook experience is like a book in a way. It's like I finish a book and it's like, oh, and then you go back and you want to reread the last chapters and try and capture that thing, and that's sort of where the headspace I'm in of like, oh, I need to go back and re-listen to that last bit of the book again, and then maybe stumble out into the daylight and try and tell you about it. So I haven't got to that point yet, but yeah, highly recommended. A book that was recommended to me by Steve Donoghue. Steve Donoghue, who is also responsible, it's his fault, that I have now picked up, because I wanted something light, what for me might be comfort reading. Don't judge me when I tell you what it is, but it is Acsquidentally in Love, Sucker for Love Mysteries, #1 by K.L. Hiers, which is an Elder God tentacle romance mystery, urban fantasy mystery novel. The mystery, I can't turn off my brain, so I'm pretty sure it's like, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, I know that. And then I'm in like about chapter 5, so it's like, okay, don't worry about the mystery. Maybe I should worry about the tentacle porn. Not the tentacle porn, but the tentacle erotica. Like that's the classy way of saying it. Where our protagonist Sloane meets this really cute guy at a party, which unfortunately coincides with the anniversary of his parents' murder many years ago when he was a child. Which he is still convinced that the killer's never been tracked down, and he sort of ruined his life trying to track it down. Gotten kicked off the police force. He is now a hard-drinking, the super sexy the private detective, and he meets this guy at a party, and he's like, oh, maybe there's a connection. Maybe I can finally give up my tortured past a little bit to let somebody into my life. This super hunky guy goes back. He lights a candle to the elder gods, which his parents also worshipped, and then kind of drinks himself into a stupor. When he wakes up, the same cute guy is there, but he's not the same guy. It's like, no, I've been killed, and actually, I'm the elder god who this form, Lockian, worshipped. And I've come to, I inhabited his body while still fresh, and I want you to track down my murderer. Dun dun dun. And so the story starts. And this elder god, Azthoth the Lesser, is a trickster god, and has tentacles that come out of him. Tentacles that do various things in various intimate sort of ways, in various intimate, sexy ways. I guess there's something to be said for waking up in the morning, all enfolded in your lover's arms and your lover's tentacles. Steve Donoghue, this is your fault. This is your fault. And so far, I'm definitely enjoying myself. It's just what the book doctor ordered for myself. And on a slightly different note, I picked up another audiobook to listen to, which is Empire of the Wild by Cherie Dimaline, who is a Canadian Métis author. Métis of Ontario. She actually comes from Georgian Bay, and this has been described in the blurb, probably in the baldest terms, as a Métis werewolf story. So I have just started that. She is actually Dimaline is best known for the Marrow Thieves, which she won the 2017 Governor General's Award for, which is one of our top literary prizes in Canada. I think she was also on Canada Reads, which is CBC's version of a book survivor, where number of books enter and only one book can survive. And I can't remember if Marrow Thieves won or not. That I don't know. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I've just started that. It is set on the Georgian Bay in a Métis community. Starts out with a little history lesson, which I think definitely a thing with native authors in Canada, elsewhere. There's telling a good story, and there's also saying, hey, you out there, you ignoramus out there, you probably are completely unaware of the history of your country, of what's been going on, and that is important context for any story I'm going to tell. And so she starts out with that, which is the displacement of these Métis, which are people of native and European mixed heritage, who didn't have any treaty rights, and thus were possibly treated there's no competition, but were treated shittily by Canadian society, shoved around, pushed onto the worst land. So there's a little bit of that at the beginning to just kind of give you context. She's done it really well, in a way that's oh, okay, good. I have that to go forward with, which I think is really important in all stories, and especially in Métis werewolf stories. So hopefully that will be a good listen. Yeah. So that's what's been up with me. And yes, we're at 20 minutes. This is apparently the natural length of things. I hope you have a good week. Probably not going to find out about the results of the election. Usually, in the olden days, the before times, we would hear about the results of the election by the end of the night. Actually, living on the west coast of Canada, usually you might even find out what the results were before you even got off work to be able to vote. but because of all the people using kind of mail-in ballots or advanced polling, stuff like that, they're projecting that, especially, and it might be a little bit close. Who knows? Who knows? Probably won't know until tomorrow how the government is going to shake out. I hope it's a really boring result, because I don't want to live in interesting times. I've lived in too many interesting times for myself, and it's been really, really, I'm a complete wimp of history. That's, if the one thing I've learned through the last couple of years is that, wow, I've been blessed to live in a boring time, a super boring time, and as a white guy living in a boring time, maybe things should be a little bit more exciting for me, but you know, it's been super boring, and then the last couple of years have been slightly exciting. I mean, exciting in a horrible kind of way, slightly exciting, and that's been really shaken me, which makes me think of all the people in this world who the constant state is excitement, and how miserable that is. How miserable that is. So may we all live in boring times. Cross our fingers and try and make it boring. Come on, people. More videos later.